My name is Eric, and this is my first new series called Stan Trek, where I talk with fellow fans about their love for a certain fandom. And particularly today, we'll be talking about Star Trek and with a fellow fan, B. And be warned, we will be spoiling old and new Trek. So if you don't want to be spoiled, please come back after you all caught up. So B, I want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is B. My pronouns are they, them. I go by Queer Check Pikachu on Threads mostly. I've been a fan of Star Trek for about 15 years or so now. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Okay. So let's start with the earliest question. What are your earliest memories of Star Trek?
When I was growing up, my mom's best friend really loved Star Trek, and my mom really loved Star Wars. And I
Mm.
thought the neighbor was real cool, but I didn't have access to it.
Yeah.
And I remember going over to her house sometime, and sh I saw Spock on TV, and I was like, "That's a cool dude." And then just like through so many years, kept seeing Spock over and over again. I was like, I feel like the universe is telling me something, but I'm not there yet. Um, so Spock was it growing up. And that's all I really knew for a long time.
Okay. What was it about Spock that kind of appealed to you?
I think in growing up in an environment of people who are very emotionally unstable and everybody's just ready to burst all of the time, I think that seeing
Yeah.
somebody just like have a reserved physical presence, and he had
Mhm.
what I thought at the time were like elf ears, and I was like, yes, elf ears, space, we're like not freaking out about everything. This is
Yeah.
great.
Well, that's great because I mean I know one of the initial concerns for Spock was the ears would they were they thought they would have a double connotation as if the double only
Oh,
had access to elf ears, and so but I'm glad that that wasn't like anything to deter you or other families from members from stopping at least appreciating Spock. Yeah.
absolutely. Spock is, I think, an intro for a lot of people because it's something that people hadn't seen a whole lot of, and
Mm.
such an easy, like, oh, he's got the elf ears and that blue shirt. I know
Yeah.
that guy. That's Star Trek.
And now, what was the episode that made you become a fan?
I actually just watched it again right before this to prepare. Um, Captain's Holiday.
Mm.
My partner at the time was watching a bunch of Star Trek, and I had seen some things here and there, and I was like, I don't want to watch that. I'm into fantasy, I'm into cartoons, but I'm not into Star Trek. And I looked over right at the time that Picard is laying out with his chest out and his Speedos, and he is mad that somebody has
Mhm.
interrupted his reading. He doesn't want Jamaharon, he just wants to read. And I was like, oh, I would also be annoyed if somebody, interrupted me while I was reading in this vacation spot. And then I like sat down and I met a Ferengi. Um, and I met Vosh and I was like, what is this is not what I thought it was going to be at all. And it has been history since I watched everything from there and then started from the beginning.
That's funny because I'd have kind of something similar. I've enjoyed Star Trek over the years, but like for me, I was more comedic minded growing up. So just like you, just watch more of the comedic minded episodes, and that was the ones that really drew me in more so than the philosophical ones, which I do appreciate now. But as a kid, I
Hmm.
was more into the comedy stuff, and I think that's a great episode too because there's just a lot of hijinks going on. Like Vosh is, you don't quite know what her deal is or whose side she's on. And even at the end of it, you're still like still kind of scared of her because you don't know what she's gonna do.
Yeah, and I really just love that. I feel like if I would have seen the more philosophical,
Mhm.
stern Picard on the bridge, who I love, I've also
Yeah,
come to love a lot. If I would have seen him first, which I kind of had a little bit, it's like, I'm not interested in this. And I'm like, oh, but this really uptight man is trying to relax, and he cannot. And his way of relaxing is just enjoying the beach and reading a book. Same.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. Because that was one of the things that kind of also deterred me from liking Picard. Because the ones I caught were always him being serious. I mean, he
Mm.
said he didn't like kids, and I'm a kid when I kind of start watching, and so like, oh, I'm not sure I want to be around this guy. And then you catch episodes like this where, oh, yes, he is a bit of a bit of a stiff, but he's a guy who can relax, who does enjoy being humorous at times. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And then getting to see him undo that in Picard was really wonderful as well. Picard himself is just so multifaceted, and Patrick Stewart is so good at showing such like nuanced emotions while basically giving nothing. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I mean, there's always been times where you can see him kind of have a stone face at times, but then other times he's clearly distressed by the orders he has to give, but he clearly goes along with it because that's just the orders he has to follow. Um,
hmm
but moving on, we're gonna be talking about another captain.
Yep.
You mentioned your one of your favorite shows is Deep Space Nine, and one of your favorite characters is Cisco. What made him such an appealing character to you?
Absolutely. I'm wearing my Deep Space Nine shirt right now. Had to
Nice.
represent today. Um, the first time I watched Deep Space Nine, I actually didn't like it. I didn't like the religious arc. I didn't
Mm,
like anything. But as somebody who grew up in a family that was kind of volatile and I didn't really
mm,
have any positive male figures in my life, when I saw Cisco be able to be like friends with the crew, still the captain, but like they're at the same level. He's not above anybody. But also the way that he parented Jake really sat so deeply with me, and I think is something that I didn't know that I needed at the time. And
mm,
I was like, this man feels so deeply and wants everybody to around him to know that he loves them and that he's there for them, and if they need anything they can come to him. There are so many times across Deep Space Nine where you just are like, that guy really cares about everybody around him, from like the smallest person that some people may,
mm,
think, and then everybody to the top. He doesn't care what your status is. You just need to be a good person. um, and so he was just really something I had not seen before.
mm. And that's something I appreciate about Avery Brooks bringing to the show. And not to mention, I don't know if you know much about behind scenes stories, but Avery Brooks also made it a point that he wanted that to be a strong part of the character, and he also had the same kind of relationship off screen with Sirach Lofton, who played Jake. And I mean, even to this day, like they have a close relationship, and he was one of the reasons Sirach was one of the reasons who helped get the one of the recent episodes with Sam as I forget the episode's name, but like as where she has investigates the mystery of what happened to Benjamin Sisko, that episode, and actually a cameo with Sirach Lofton, and it just also mirrors kind of their journey, what it's like to be an emissary, what it's like to just figure out their own path, and also a little bit about self-love and value as well. Mhm.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
I feel like you can tell when you get to see uh the crew of Deep Space Nine reunite and stuff, you can just tell that there's this very deep love and that Avery is at the heart of it, from stories that people tell,
Mhm.
everything. And I feel like Series Acclamation Mill, that episode did such a good job of paying homage to him. Avery Brooks has decided not to be in the public spotlight, and I feel like that is of utmost to protect, importance to protect. Um, and they did such a good job of honoring him without overstepping boundaries and respecting him not wanting to come back. We get closure without while respecting who he is as Cisco
Mhm.
and as Avery Brooks.
Oh, exactly. And I always assumed with Star Trek fans, most of us like our own headcanon, and one of my headcanons has always been, I'm sure he came back at some point. I don't know how long, but it doesn't, whenever he does return, it doesn't mean he wants to be recorded that he came back or wants it public. I'm sure, I mean, with such, him being such an important figurehead, I'm sure the guy wants his privacy or just his time to be just not to be necessary and be bothered by everybody.
Absolutely.
Mm,
And I
mm,
feel like he left Jake with enough, because that's something that always bothered me. I was like, he would
mm.
not leave Jake and a new kid on the way also. Like, how?
Exactly.
That's not Cisco to me. But then I feel like Series Acclamation Mill made
Mm.
it so that Jake kind of knew that's what's going to happen, and we got to see that Jake ended up being okay, because that was really important for me.
Exactly, because there's the other episode, The Visitor, where he turns up where a future version of Jake is played by Tony Todd, and you see him just throughout his adult life just being very distraught that he lost his father in such a tragic way, and does everything, sacrifices his own well-being and happiness just to try and get his father back. And of course, it was to his father's dismay that he had to do that when he just wanted him to live his life as best as possible. Um, but moving on, also, but related, how do you feel about Starfleet Academy?
I love Starfleet Academy. I it has I had not been a part of Star Trek fandom and hadn't really been watching it for about a year and a half or so.
Mm,
Maybe like every once in a while I would watch something. I
mm,
didn't finish catching up on Strange New Worlds. I kind of just was like, I know this is a thing I love, but I can't access it right now.
mm.
And then my partner reminded me that Starfleet Academy was coming out, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly up my alley. Like a kid's adventure. Like they get to explore, like they get to go to school about Star Trek. We're not seeing Picard, we're not seeing Cisco, we're not seeing adults, we're seeing like people. That's why I love Lower Deck so much, I think, as a quick caveat, is
Mm,
because of that theme. I love seeing what the people who aren't there aren't books written about them. There aren't
mm.
statues made about them. I love seeing what those people do, or if they become those future people that statues and songs are written about, who they are when they're growing and they're learning. I didn't know what to expect, but it has been so much more than I could have ever imagined.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's one of those wonderful things where I personally I wasn't against it, but I wasn't exactly excited by it. But as each episode has gone on, I've grown to enjoy it more and more. And each character has quite a bit of depth and nuance to them. Um, I mean, pretty much most of the main characters, main kids, have had some substance to them, and it's only been up to episode 8. And whereas some other series of Star Trek, not all of the side character, not all of the non-lead characters have always been so lucky to really get enough um, of a background, even that's not just developed by their actor's own headcanon. So I mean, some for on Discovery, there's been some characters who I've liked and appreciated, but never really got much to do beyond just their station on the bridge or ship.
Absolutely, and that's one
Mm,
of the facets I like as well, is that everybody gets a moment and they have such a good way of weaving these stories together to show that every single person is important. They're a part of the story. Something
mm,
they've said or done to another person propels this person's arc, or, and they're in these small but masterful ways does everybody feel like they're included. And I feel like after the burn, that's such a wonderful thing for them to have. There's nothing is anything the way that it used to be, and now
mm.
they get to start from scratch, and instead of they embrace that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That's they get enough distance from past lore where they don't have to feel like everybody's expecting some sort of unnecessary cameo or something, or unnecessary tie to like, oh, what happened to the Romulans? Oh, it's kind of settled in Disco, and we get to explore this new horizon for everybody really, and not to mention these cast of characters. There's the main lead has an interesting story where he separated by his mom and basically becomes a runaway and trying to find her. We have Jaden, who's this great Klingon who is an outsider by his own Klingons. Even still, to in the 32nd century, you think they would kind of be more accepting of other non-warrior type roles, but still, even then, that culture still burns deep within them. And then there's also the Admiral's daughter in Genesis and Serious Exclamation Mill Sam, who is also another great character who we're just beginning to learn about. But yeah, and and now moving on to Lower Decks, there's obviously a lot of parallels between kind of them, but just at different places in their lives. And what about Lower Decks that appeals to you?
Lower Decks reminds me that adults, still know how to have fun and be silly. You can tell a good story with jokes. You can tell a good story with fan service over and over again about people's favorite series and still have good screenwriting. You can be clever and give the people what they want. And I feel like Lower Decks is another one that is a loud love letter to Star Trek. I've been rewatching that one a lot recently, and all the time I'm like, ooh, that's a little egg for that, or ooh, that's a joke from that.
Mm,
And they go back to Deep Space Nine a lot. So for me, that's very circular. All of
mm.
my favorites kind of really play off of each other. So that's been really wonderful for me.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the showrunner McMahon also, interestingly enough, made it a point to hire some writers that were non-Star Trek fans. So that way, it wasn't totally you didn't have to necessarily be immersed in the lore of Star Trek to really appreciate it. And and though I've been a longtime fan by the time the show started, and and also had my own reservations as I'm not a big fan of like the Family Guy type of
Mm-hmm.
comedy, and which kind of gave that what unfairly judged it as possibly being that kind of type of comedy, and while it may have some elements of it, but it was his own thing. Most of the comedy is hilarious, silly, weird, sincere, or just wild. And even when it kind of goes outside my comfort zone in some styles of its comedy, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, not that wasn't like something I found funny, but there were so many other positives to it that made it much more of an enjoyable show that I could just overlook it and just get past it. And now,
Absolutely.
out of all these various shows, who have been some of your favorite characters?
So let's see. I already said Deep Space Nine and Cisco,
Mm,
Cisco forever,
yeah.
but the newer shows, I will say Jaden and Sam for Starfleet Academy. Um, a queer Klingon and somebody, coming from this background that's so set in their ways and all of these things, but then just like busting through that. And his brother seeing him
Mm,
healed me. Like
mm,
having being so strange and so different, instead of that being something that people do not enjoy about you, they love you fiercely and will do anything to make who you want to be become a reality. And then a gay Klingon. Again, I'm so excited about it.
yeah.
I like Klingons have always been my favorite because of stories like Jaden. I love the Outliers. I love Kalar.
Mm,
I love, yeah, Klingons. But series acclamation mill, something that happens for me a lot is I approach everything with enthusiasm. If I end up being disappointed later, sure, cool. But like any new show, Starfleet Academy, I was ready. I didn't know what
mm,
they were going to throw at me, but I was like ready. And I feel like that level of excitement and joy and just like, I'm getting a new Star Trek show. Let's see what I love about it. I didn't really see anything wrong with it until I saw people point things out, and I was like, I could kind of see that, but the whole time I've just been really enjoying that. And similar to Lower Decks for me, I really love Tendi and Rutherford. I have my favorite characters are always people who are kind and trying their best to figure it out, I
mm.
guess.
And I was wondering, like, just growing up, did you also like these characters? Because for you, did you always feel like an outlier as well?
Absolutely. So many things I was drawn to. I read a lot more when I was younger because there was a little bit more restriction on like what I could watch or listen to, but I could read anything. So I like to read a lot of fantasy books. I like to read a lot of characters going on an adventure and finding themselves. And so even as an adult, once I turned 18 and started being able to, watch things for myself, I have gravitated towards so many new animated shows. Kids are adventuring, they're figuring themselves out. I really am just ready for the adventure with whoever. And sometimes I don't like the adventure, but I'm
Mm.
happy I watched it and I might not watch it again. But yeah, that is a very driving force for me, is like kids on a quest. Let's see how they grow.
And that's one of the great elements I was found of almost any of Star Trek. It's always either actual physical adventure or even a personal adventure for a lot of the different characters.
Hmm.
Yeah, for like for example, Tendi, she was also one of those outliers, just not wanting to be part of the syndicate or the head of a syndicate, and just wanting to just chart her own adventure with Starfleet, and even joining with a whole bunch of people and whose personalities I did not think would personally would align with hers, but they all just are in their own ways just compatible. Yeah.
That enthusiasm of Tindy's really hooks me, where she's just like, okay, that didn't work out, but let's try this. But I think that when you come from a place where you're surrounded by this expectation of somebody that you don't want to be, when you finally get to be around people who are just okay with whatever you
Mm,
show up as,
yeah,
of course I'm gonna be enthusiastic. Of course I'm gonna
yeah,
be like, yeah, let's try that.
yeah. Oh, and not to mention that episode where she makes a dog, and it's not the conventional normal Terran dog where, they bark and walk on four legs. It's a dog that can turn into a cube, a weird, can sprout spider legs, bats somehow
Mouth
fly out of
opens.
its head, free of its body, and,
Yeah,
and can talk, can fly. And at the end, we we find out Tendi, finally figures out she didn't make a normal dog. She made something special, and yet was not wanting to this like dog to feel weird or anything, but yet the dog comforts her by saying, "I know I'm weird. That's okay," and just flies away on this hospital planet. Yeah.
it's so wonderful. It's just like
Mm.
she's so smart and
Mm.
just like the coding that the DNA coding she did is incredible and they point
Yeah.
that out. But also, girl, that is not a dog.
And you have to imagine what did she dive into to make her think what she made was a typical dog as well.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
what Tindy?
Now, moving on. What is Star Trek to you?
Star Trek is hope.
Mm.
Every iteration of Star Trek, nothing is going the right way. There's conflict. People are fighting each other. They don't like each other because they don't understand each other, and they're all trying to colonize each other. Basically, they're under the guise of exploration. Um, and I think something that Star Trek is really good at is in every point in time saying, yeah, it can get bad. It can get this bad. In Starfleet Academy, the burn, like it can get this bad, but look, we're loving each other. We're forging connections. We're working through the hard stuff. Um, and we now have a Jem'Hadar Klingon, which I never thought would happen. Um, and so anything can literally happen. And if we care about each other even just a little bit, we can figure it out. But we just got to care first.
That's a good point. I never really thought about it like quite like that. I always just thought about more so just a peaceful society. I never thought about it in terms of different people, different cultures, just intermingling or whatever the better word would be. Just and producing something out of that, like a Jem'Hadar Klingon. What not to mention the Jem'Hadar were a race that were artificially created and mostly just male, and then just
Mm-hmm.
know at some point they produce female, and then just develop relationships with other species, and of course it'd be Klingons, which makes sense too as well. Yeah.
They're a great pairing.
Now, would you want to live in a Star Trek universe? And if so, in what way?
Yes, in my heart of hearts, I would like to be on a starship like Lower Deck style or
Mhm.
go to Starfleet Academy and figure it out. But who I am currently as a person, I just want to like live on a planet and take care of animals and plants, and that's my job. You know what I mean? Like, I don't,
Yeah.
universal basic income. Maybe I'll just live on Earth,
Yeah.
tend to some things, teach a couple kids,
Mm.
just low stakes and just not be stressed. I don't want to go from a stressful life and then go to a fantasy universe in which I'm also stressed.
I totally relate with there. Like, the idea of being a captain sounds nice, but then you forget about all the responsibilities and the stressors that entail with it. I mean, like for Picard, there's like some random Ferengi or Q bothering the heck out of him. I mean, he gets into his bed. You don't want to be waking up to a stranger in your bed and making you questioning your life choices and possibly changing your life, your the course of your life into something else where you're not the
No,
captain in a worse way. Yeah.
I just want to be able to read a book, eat some
Mm,
food, do a
yeah.
job that matters and be done. I don't want to be fighting the Borg.
Well, not to mention, you chose a job that is not a red shirt target. I mean, most cases, if the animal's dangerous enough, they're going to have security. Whereas opposed to if you're investigating some anomaly or some weird other thing or even doing diplomatic relationships, you're gonna get some kind of situation where it's gonna be tense already. And not to mention, there's one thing that unfortunately Trek has never um, followed up enough to my liking has been just the different animals. Of course, there's budgetary constraints and stuff like that, but we get to see wonderful animals like a Salat from Spock's life or Targs from Klingons. Yeah.
I did wildlife rehab. I've got a lot of possums behind me. They
Oh,
are
nice.
a big special interest of
Mhm.
mine. Um, and that's when I saw Keiko do her exobiology and on Bajor and like leave for a while. I was like, ooh, I think that's what I want to do. I've never thought I fit in the Star Trek universe anywhere, but I just want to take care of possums and raccoons of planets, similar animals, and make sure they're okay.
Now, how did you get to possum rehab?
I'm from Florida, so you can do a lot of things
Mhm.
that everybody else tells you, like, you mean you can do that? Um, and there was a center around the corner from a house that I grew up at. And finally, when I was in my 20s, I was like, I'm just going to show up and try this. They've got a volunteer sign up, but I also have a special interest in all types of animal biology, so I already knew a lot, and I picked up on it really quick, and ended up being because of my enthusiasm and knowledge, ended up being the director of the outdoor wilding portion. So right before they get released, making sure that they're healthy enough, they know how to forage, all of that stuff. And I just really loved animals, and I was like, I gotta learn how to do this. Y'all just let me, and they did.
Nice. And do you plan to follow it further into a career or anything like that?
It's hard to do where I live now,
Oh, okay.
because there are a lot of laws and there are a lot of things that are considered invasive species and stuff.
Oh,
But it's always there. If it ever becomes a thing that I can do again, it is always there for a passion for me.
well, that's wonderful. Now, outside of the shows and movies, are there any other Trek content you enjoyed?
Yes, I have collected a decent amount of this, and this is a hard thing for me sometimes
Mm,
knowing like names of things.
no
But
worries.
I collect a lot of comic books, even if it's
Mm.
just like I'll read the story, put it away, keep it pristine, and then I don't remember what it's called. I
Yeah.
have a lot of Lower Decks and Deep Space Nine. Anything that's got Cisco, if I can find it. There are many Ciscos in my house. I have a lot of figurines. Um, one of my favorite stories, it's brief. One of my favorite stories is when my partner and I were first dating. We could only see each other every other weekend because of like work schedules. My dog was old. There was just a lot of stuff. So, um, she would get me gifts when I would come over, just like, a figurine here or a shirt or something and have them. But I finally saved up enough money to be able to get her one. And one of the first episodes that we watched together was A Fistful of Datas. And loved Cowboy Worf. That's what we call him. That's is Cowboy Worf. But I had put the last one on Etsy in my cart, and when I
Mm,
woke up the next morning, it was gone. And I was like, "Oh no, this is like the most
yeah,
thoughtful gift." But
yeah,
she doesn't know I was gonna get it. I'll
yeah.
look for another one, all of that. I get to her house that weekend, and she's like, "Hey, I have something for you," and it was the Cowboy Wharf that I had had in my cart, but she bought. And so now he hangs up on our wall, Cowboy
Oh.
Wharfing. And that has been a theme throughout our relationship that sometimes we Cowboy Wharf each other. I have a giant possum here, and I got
Mm.
her a giant Snorlax at the same time. She got
Uh,
so we've had a Cowboy Wharf situation.
that sounds like a wonderful relationship you have with your partner. I remember finding that Cowboy Wharf set at a convention and I got it from my friend and his just eyes just lit up because me and him we have a fondness for the weird and kind of silly aspects of Trek and not to mention it's just like a tiny like I think probably the only Alexander figure and I think he's just a tiny little cowboy
It
and there's no regular and yeah, and there's no regular version of Alexander. It's just that
just
there's only the cowboy version of him. And I think it's like unfortunately same thing with Nog. Like there's only just like a weird. like he's an accessory to like ROM or something as
I
opposed to
have
a
that
regular
one too.
figure. Yeah. Yeah, so but luckily I heard this company called Nacelle is a toy company and will be producing a Nog figure. It'll be kind of pricey, but it's pretty high quality. I think about like maybe somewhere to 30 to 40, I think somewhere around that range. Oh, speaking of, so have you what conventions have you gone to?
I have only gone to two.
Okay.
Um, this past year
Hmm.
and the year before that, I've gone to Rose City Comic Con. Um, I'd not been able to go to them because of like where I lived, finances, anything. And my partner surprised me with tickets for Christmas.
Oh.
And again, she's not a big nerd, but she is so supportive of all of my nerdy endeavors. This
Mm,
Deep Space Nine shirt is from her.
yeah.
Um, and I got to go to those, so I've gone for 2 years now.
Okay, nice. And did you get to meet anybody you liked there?
Yes, my first Star Trek celebrity was Doug Jones, and he was a delight. I had read about Doug hugs, which I did not ask for because I get anxious sometimes, and I'm just like, I'm meeting Doug Jones. I've never met a celebrity. I love you, Saru. And I he was just so delightful. I was very visibly excited. As you can tell, I am just very easily excitable,
Mm.
and I was trying to keep it together so that I wasn't being like a creepy, weird fan or anything because I don't feel like that, you know? Um, and so I'm just like bottled up excitement. There's tears welling up in my eyes, and I'm just like, oh, hello. And he's just like, you just have the most superstar smile. And I was like, oh my goodness. And we took our little picture together, and he put his arm around me, and he was just the sweetest person. Oh my goodness.
And I've also had been on the receiving end of a dog hug, and I'll be honest, I didn't expect it either. I figured it was because I didn't have enough funds to purchase a picture or autograph. I figured that was more reserved for those fans, and so like after I asked my question, I figured he was just gonna walk up and go for lunch or something. All of a sudden, he just comes and embrace me, and I get a little bit anxious with people who I'm not too familiar with hug me, even if it is a celebrity. And so I'm fully enveloped by this giant of a man. I'm like, I'm partly, oh, I wouldn't say partly. I was really nervous, but at the same time also comforted somehow. Yeah.
Exactly. All of the things that I was anxious about, I feel like he knew them and was
Mm.
just like, "You're okay. I know you're
Yeah.
excited." And he
Yeah.
just like, "Thank you."
Now, have you ever have any interest in going to like a Star Trek specific convention, like the one in Las Vegas?
Oh my goodness, I would love to. I
Mm.
have really bad social anxiety, but
Uh,
when I am in groups of people who I already have a common ground with, like
mm,
if you love something enough to show up to a con that's specific to it, we have something in common.
yeah.
And that those types of environments seem to make me a little bit more comfortable. So yeah, I want to go on the cruise at some point. I
Mm.
would like to do a lot of those things. I would love to. I love to cosplay and dress up and put on makeup and be a huge nerd, and I would love to do that with other nerds.
Yeah, I also struggle with social anxiety as well, and I've been to the Vegas convention only once, and I can totally understand because like even though I am here with a bunch of other people who or I can talk about all the different nuances of Trek, yet I feel like I'm either not on their level or I feel like I'm gonna bother them. But after a while, you find hopefully you'll find a comfort level like I was kind of able to and most of the people I encountered were super friendly. I mean aside from just being just stumbling on my own words when it came to meeting celebrities because I pretty much when I met them my brain froze even more so and just had trouble articulating what I wanted to say to them, but even then for the most part I mean most of them were super friendly and kind as well. I mean the only one that might had not trouble, but just like I had to recognize that Brent Spiner, he has kind of a jokey manner, so it can easily be read as snark when it's really just him being impish or whatever you want to call it.
I feel like
Um,
he's a person who, if he's like jabbing at you a little bit, he doesn't have a problem with you.
oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I feel like that that's his kind of personality. He teases, but never, as far as I know, out of malice.
Nope.
Mhm. Yeah, because I remember I pretty much remember when on my first day of Star Trek Las Vegas, I it was I believe the preview day, so everybody was just kind of setting up, and I had literally just gotten off the plane because I'd flown from Indiana, where I'm at 5 a.m. So I am just sleep deprived. I was not able to get any sleep on the plane. I am just on no, just on the edge. I'm walking around the floor and I have to spot Tawny Newsome just getting ready into her booth and just greeting fans. And I'm like, I knew she was gonna be there. I had not prepared anything at all. I usually have a note card or at least practice a little speech before I get up there. And then by the time I get up there, I all I planned to do and say was, I just wanted to say thank you because your show and you and everybody else on that show has meant a lot to me because it got a lot of us through the pandemic or forget about the pandemic. And not to mention, it's just darn good Trek and you're just a wonderful person. But instead, I what I kind of did was I just started tearing up unexpectedly because I forgot how emotionally it meant to me and just and and at the same time, I'm not even like I dressed for comfort when I was on the plane, so I look like a little Japanese schoolboy with a big old ball cap. I'm wearing my big old backpack loaded with everything I've got on me, and I'm wearing like cargo shorts, and so I'm like, yeah, like a tourist schoolboy, and I'm just trying to keep myself from tearing up. And she was being super kind about it, but when we took the photo, it looks like she's kind of holding me hostage because she has my arm like I didn't want to get too close and like just get my airplane sweat all over her or anything like that. And so she just has her arms slightly just on me, wanting to be nice, but it's me just wanting to keep a reasonable distance so I don't get any of my airplane stank on her. Yeah, so but
That
other
could
than that,
absolutely be me.
yeah, yeah. But the nice thing was that's kind of almost a lot of folks who are unprepared or just unexpected of how they'll react to a certain situation. I mean, I even talked with another person who was manning a vending one of the vendor booths, and just she had kind of a similar experience, but luckily she had more of a charm to hers than I did. But either way, it was still just it was nice of her to be able to relate her own embarrassing celebrity meetup story of me as well. Yeah.
I love that.
Have there been any of the actors or cast or crew that in particular you would like to meet up someday?
I would like to meet the entirety of the cast of Starfleet Academy. I'm already like stalking my local
Mm,
con page to see. But please,
yeah.
preferably, and
Uh,
actually not preferably anybody. All of them, please,
yeah.
but I'm okay with it.
Mm,
Um, ooh, Brent Spiner.
mm.
When I first started watching Next Generation, Data spoke to me or screamed at me, and now I know that I am autistic and have ADHD and all of these other
Yeah.
things, and it makes sense.
Mm.
The entirety of that, Tawny Newsome, I've gotten some cameos from some
Oh,
of
nice.
the Star Trek cast. Me and my
Mm.
partner have gotten each other some.
Aw.
Um, Tawny Newsome. It's so funny. Sometimes I just get excited about somebody's character and then I can't remember what their name is, even though I know. I
Oh,
almost
don't
just
worry. So you can refer to him by
shouted
character
Tilly,
name. Yeah.
but Mary Wiseman.
Mm.
Uh, oh my goodness. Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that's really wonderful for me about Trek is there are very few people that I would not be excited to. Jonathan Frakes. Jonathan Frakes.
Oh,
I loved Will Riker and everything he's been in, so.
yeah, I was gonna say, I remember at that same convention, I was at, so celebrities are were on like the east end of the ballroom hall, and I was on the west end, just minding my own business, just kind of looking around the different vendors and the products they have, and all of a sudden, I noticed a line started forming around me, and I ended up being part of the line, so I had to scoot away from the end of this line, and I was wondering what the line was for, and it turned out it was for John and the Frakes. The line has snaked from the east end of the corner to all the way to where I was to the west end, and so I had to keep moving. So I would get out of the way people get out of the way people who were trying to line up for him, and that his line was like that for pretty much the 3 4 days he was there. And yeah, so he's from what I've heard, he's like one of the friendliest and exactly kind of like you, just very charming, enthusiastic man.
He
Yeah.
always looks like he's ready to have a good time, which I really enjoy.
Now, I remember, so following on some of your posts on Threads, it's
Mhm.
yeah, you've also sparked an interest in starting your own podcast. Would you like to talk about what you can about it right now?
I would love that. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, I am starting a podcast that was helped named by folks on Threads. I told them, what I was doing, and a bunch of people helped me figure out my name. It will be Self-Healing Stem Bolts, a search for deep space joy. So the premise behind that is I want to be joyful, and I struggle with that because
Mhm.
world, life, brain, all of the factors. But one of the things that always can help me find joy is Star Trek without without a doubt. Even in the times in which I wasn't watching it as much, if I had an episode, I would have an episode ready for however I was feeling. Um, and I think that so many of the things that I find joyful are small things. They're not big. I didn't need a whole season to feel the joy. I want to discuss mentor relationships and when adults are infallible and when children are able to grow and learn and mess up and everybody's just there to support each other. I want to explore finding joy in gender expression and how that looks different for everybody. I just want to take a trek with everybody, trying to find joys in small, unexpected places. And Starfleet Academy inspired all of it.
And that's wonderful because I mean, I think that's one of the beauty of a lot of the Star Trek. It's better, but never always perfect, and there's always room for growth or just new paths for somebody. And there's also the variety of episodes. So if you're feeling like you need some hope or a laugh or just need to feel like someone gets your pain and like the one of with Nog and
Yep.
the Paper Moon episode, which I've heard a
Oh,
lot of people with PTSD has related to, and I definitely and showing me just the struggle. I mean, and I mean a lot of people relate to just wanting to shy away, especially with kind of some of the situations that we find ourselves living through. So it's understandable for us wanting to hide away, but in a beautiful way, Star Trek is something while we might find some escapism and we also find some connection in either with fellow fans or just the struggles they face and just and be able to turn it into something more positive, whether it's a simple expression of just appreciating something or what you're doing and just creating a podcast and just to be able to recognize and appreciate and just to explore the different aspects of Trek like that is just frankly amazing.
thank you. I'm so excited to, like I said, with the beginning of Starfleet Academy, so many people went in with reserves, like I don't
Mm,
know what this is gonna be, I don't know. And I was like, yes. Same for Strange New Worlds. I don't really watch a lot of the original series, and so I had a little bit of a bias, where I was like, but then I was also, let's see what happens. And so I think that that's also something I really want to bring to the tone of the podcast is yes, everything's got issues. I watch some episodes and I'm like, what is that? Why? There are a couple of times, even in Starfleet Academy, where I'm like, okay, but the overarching theme for me is joy. It is learning, it is love, it is humanity, because that's the only thing I have to base it on, but it's like interspecies,
mm,
human condition, humanity.
mm.
But yeah, I really want to look at all of the new series, and I want to do this with every series that comes out. I want to go back and watch the series that I am not as fond of and challenge myself to find joy in those episodes and to figure out what part of that speaks to me and pulls to me. So that is the basis of what I would like to do.
Okay, but that sounds really wonderful because I've also find myself not liking certain element of Trek or maybe uh I don't hate Deep Space Nine or anything like that. It doesn't resonate with me as it
Yep.
does with someone like you. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand certain elements of it, and I do really like certain characters like Miles O'Brien and Worf
Mm-hmm.
and but there's also just some other characters I haven't quite been able to connect to. But
Yeah.
then, I'll find one like Quark or Rom and Nog, and those really connect with me. And I find that sometimes it's you kind of got, with Trek, you kind of got to dig around to find something that appeals to you. And with TOS, it can be a little harder because unfortunately it's made within those times, which were especially not always kind to women or minorities, and it was always focusing more so on the leads or having to or trying to do things to appeal to a broader audience or having to appease the studio executives. And but there are still, funny enough, like I don't know what the ratio is for it, but like for as many not so great track in it. Like some of the great, the better track, The City on Edge of Forever or Journey to Babel, are the ones that have lasted even to this, like has lasted as some of the best shining examples to this day.
Yeah. And I think that if you go into something thinking that you're going to not like it, you're probably not going to like it. And so sometimes when I feel that I'm in that headspace, I won't watch a new Trek or I won't rewatch a thing because I'm like, I'm not in the mood for new opinions and ideas. I'm looking to be mad right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that that hasn't happened with a lot of I saw somebody the other day talking about this, and I think this is important, the Discovery era Trek,
Mm,
instead of new Trek.
mm,
So Discovery era Trek, I think, has been so wonderful of bringing it back to us, but being new and fresh and like giving us all aspects of Star Trek. It's not going to be
mm,
the same things we've watched, over and over again. I really like that we are getting different angles and different storylines and different storytellers, which is
mm.
really important. It makes people generally fairly upset that there are so many people of color and queer people in Star Trek, but for me, I feel like there's not enough because I'm a queer person,
Mm, mm.
and so I think that thinking about those perspectives is really interesting as well.
And that was one of the strongest aspects I thought of this the Discovery era was just the richness of the cast. And frankly, I think the one that has been not we haven't been given enough of is Tig Notaro's Jet Reno. I mean, just her debut episode, her inclusion in Starfleet Academy. I love everybody else that's been around her, but frankly, I would love more Jet Reno.
I love Jet Reno and Jet Reno and Laura Thought together, my lesbian aunts that I just adore. Their relationship is great, and I'm glad that of the people to come in and be a staple in Starfleet Academy that was Jet Reno. I feel like she has such a wonderful, even personality around all in the middle of the chaos, and I really see her as like an anchor and an anchor for a lot of folks.
Now, so in conclusion, I was going to say, are there any advice you want to share with any new or fellow Trekkies about just Star Trek in general?
I think with Star Trek, you are always going to love something differently than somebody else. Love it because you love it and share that love. Just share love and light and hope. And if folks are rude or mean to you online or anything, just block them. Get done with
Mm,
it. Find the people that are going to be kind to you. Find the people that love what you love as much as you love it, because that's something that's really important to me. It's kind of hard to be fighting with anybody because we're just so excited about new Trek, old Trek, share the joy of Star Trek.
exactly. I mean, even though we may like the different aspects of the show or different shows, it's it's still Star Trek. I mean, we couldn't have Star Trek without each other. I mean, without the fans or without just the different shows, each one was built upon another. From Nichelle Nichols just fighting for what she can on the show, and to be allowed to
Totally.
be actually finally have a black captain, and then we have Tawny Newsome as Beckett Mariner to be someone who is chaotic, messy, but yet all at the same time just joyful as well.
Star Trek joy.
Yeah. What is joy to you, whether it's related to Star Trek or outside of it? And yeah, what sparks that joy for you?
Joy to me is usually when I see, I guess the base of it for me is when I get a little smile. I'm having a really bad day and I feel dysregulated and I feel like I'm not human because I have a lot of um I don't feel in my body a lot, I guess.
Mm.
And so I forget I'm a person often, and I'm just kind of this brain floating around. And when I sit down and I'm watching something like Star Trek, and I'm able to, it's like lights, like parts of me start being alive again, and I start feeling like I'm a person again. That's what joy feels like to me, because most of my life is the non-human space, and joy gives me just little tinges of light all over myself, and I get to feel deeply, and I have a vessel in which to enjoy that, and I get to think and experience things that can be hard sometimes in a way that feels safe, because I'm seeing these people that feel like real people to me, and the actors are, real. But I'm seeing these people go through a hard thing and love each other and choose to, I know I'm dysregulated, I know that I'm having a bad time, but you know what, you needed that and I'm going to bring it to you. I really love feeling like a human.
That's a good way to put it, because especially for characters like for like Sam, Data, or and especially Data, who is someone who is not as quite human as he wishes to be, or doesn't exactly feel the same way that compared to other humans, but yet he's someone who always is trying to connect with himself and with others. And even though he may be lacking in certain or unable to feel certain things. He constantly keeps striving. Um, I mean, like for the episode Time Zero, when he find his head in the cave, and Riker and Troy are all distressed about it, and Data's not nonplussed about it because he knows at some point he will die, and doesn't fear it because it also makes him feel connected to Mandy because he knows there's going to be an end for him, but yet he also recognizes that Riker's distress and says like I do appreciate you guys and you have left a mark on me and he's saying it a more data way, but more or less that's what the sentiment he was trying to get across to Riker.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel like Sam's most recent arc for me has been such a, like, you saw a physical manifestation of parts missing
Mm.
because she she couldn't feel and she couldn't process a feeling, or she couldn't, um process her feelings. And seeing a physical manifestation of that really helped me be like, oh, I am enthusiastic and I want to feel all this love and this big thing, but the hard parts are hard to untangle sometimes. I love my android hologram character.
Now, one last thing I want to talk about before I let you go is what did you think of last night's or I mean the last Starfleet Academy episode with the Doctor and Sam and everybody?
Masterful.
Mm.
Again, I didn't know how Tilly coming back would land, but I was excited because Tilly was my favorite in Discovery. Um, Something that we don't see a lot as a culture or society right now is people talking about how they really feel. And I feel like the kids have gone through the burn. Now, this is the first time everybody's come to like an actual school for the Federation. They're having to like sit in what the new normal looks like, basically. And pain affects people different ways. The doctor, it cut him off for 800 years, made it so that he wouldn't open up and wouldn't feel things. And then you have Sam, who wants nothing more than to feel and love and do all of those things. And she doesn't care if it hurts. She doesn't care if it's messy or it's not perfect. She wants every facet of that. And I feel like they did such a masterful job with the cadets as well, not even in just that story arc, but the cadets as well. And like confronting an emotion in a safe place and being able to talk about it without it being a monster hiding under your bed
Mhm.
situation. Like, no, these are all real and we're all feeling it, but we're too scared that we aren't, so we're not going to talk. And at this point, everybody gets to kind of let down their guard and show each other that, yeah, we do care and it does suck and we all are hurt. We're just trying to make a semblance out of it. And all of the acting was top tier.
Oh, definitely. Like the scene with Dr. Nyla, where the doctor basically says, for me, it was 800 years ago, or it was 800 years ago, but for me, it still seems like yesterday. And then for Nala to be there, definitely is the one of the better choices, as she can relate, as she's had a long life, has seen people come and go, her own son as well, and
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to relate to the pain of a long life and just outliving the people you care about is definitely tough. Mm,
Absolutely.
mm, mm. But yeah, that was it. And feel free to reach out anytime, whether it's regarding this or that. And but yeah, I think you'll do just fine with your own podcast. If this interview is any indication, you definitely got the stuff.
Thank you.
And once you get all set up, no rush. If you're interested in any guest hosts, I'll be happy
Oh,
to
you're about
join
to be my
one
first
someday.
guest host once I get it figured out. You're about to be my first
Yeah,
guest host when I get
yeah.
this figured out.
But yeah, that's all. Just thank you again very much for joining me, B, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful night and thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
This has been a Himbo production. Thank you for watching.